Since I've talked a bit about the cinematic abomination that is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, I wanted to go back and reflect on the earlier films, the actual Indiana Jones films, the legit Indiana Jones films, and in particular on the very first one, Raiders of the Lost Ark, which I think was later renamed Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Arks, just because they wanted this symmetry of names, Indiana Jones and the blah, Indiana Jones and the blah. But from the beginning, it was Raiders of the Lost Ark, just like Star Wars: A New Hope from the beginning was just Star Wars, and that's how I'll always think of it. Raiders of the Lost Ark, I'll always think of it as Raiders of the Lost Ark. There's a scene in particular that I don't think has been discussed enough. At least I've never heard it discussed. I kind of hang out in filmic cinephile circles online, where there are other cinephile enthusiasts, and I've gotten a lot of interesting information from these channels, and it's been a very worthwhile, rewarding thing. But one thing that I don't think I've heard any of them talk about is the climactic scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark, which I want to talk about now, just because it's deceptively simple, I guess. We watch it and it's this big, gory, kind of schlocky, you could say, B-movie kind of moment, where it's just like heads melting, faces melting, heads exploding, people dying, and then all this stuff going on, and fire shoots out, and the angel that floats out of the ark becomes an angel of death, and this very spooky, scary, apocalyptic kind of horror movie moment, where this film, that's been just an action adventure to this point, becomes straight up horror for at least this segment of 2 minutes. There are so many great things about this scene, though, that remain unremarked upon. And I'm giving Spielberg his due. I'm giving the devil his due. I'm not a fan of Spielberg personally. I do, nor am I, a huge fan of his cinematic output, in toto. But he has had some great moments as a filmmaker, and he's obviously very talented, and you have to give the man his due, and that's what I'm doing here. And I don't think, unless I'm missing something right now, I don't think there's a moment in the entire Spielberg canon. I don't think there's a moment that's quite as brilliant as this scene. And again, it's wrapped up in this the trappings of this sort of B movie, showing you blood and gore and all of this kind of stuff. But then you think and realize the way this whole scene has been encapsulated, the way this whole scene has been conceived, and it's really extraordinary when you think about it. When it all clicks in your mind. So what happens in this scene? Well, Indiana Jones has tried but failed to get the Ark back from Belloc, his rival archaeologist, who always seems to find a way to best him, and the Nazis. And so the Nazis are going to open the Ark, even though a lot of them don't really like this whole idea. It's this Jewish artifact. They don't want to have anything to do with this thing. But Belloc insists that he knows this kind of ceremony. He has reverence for this, even though he's a piece of shit kind of guy. he does at least have reverence for this artifact, which he calls a radio for talking to God. In an earlier scene, he has this idea that something extraordinary and amazing will happen, and maybe he'll gain certain powers from, conducting this ceremony. But all through the movie, there's been this sort of foreboding about this is an artifact that doesn't want to be found. This is an artifact that I fear the notion of them actually digging this up. It had been remarked a couple of times earlier. Sala said something to that effect. Indiana Jones's buddy at the college, Denham Elliott's character, also said something about the Ark not wanting, not really being good that it be found. And Indy's just kind of got this bravado about it the whole time, and he says, I don't believe in that hocus pocus mumbo jumbo. But at this particular moment, at this crucial moment, as they're opening the Ark and doing this ceremony out on this island, somewhere in the Pacific, on this deserted island, Indy suddenly gets this premonition. He gets this intimation from somewhere, from a, it's really like a sixth sense that informs him at this moment, and he realizes something is about to happen. It's really going to be bad, and this we're not meant to see this. This is a sacred artifact, and it's being tampered with, and it does not want to be tampered with, and they're opening up these forces that are beyond their control, and things are going to go south really fast. He just realizes this at this moment, even though he'd been, he had always expressed this kind of glib sort of dismissiveness about the Ark having some kind of magical power or anything like that. But at this particular moment, he says, he and Marion are tied to a stake while this is happening, and he says to Marion, whatever you do, don't look at it. Don't look at it, Marion. And he says this very, very insistently. And Marion, who's this, this like firecracker, this tough, feisty broad. Well, at this particular moment, she does what her man tells her. She says she closes her eyes because he's so insistent about it. And then they open the Ark, and all the stuff happens that it's something you've probably all seen. You probably all know the scene that I'm referring to. At first, they open it. It just seems like it's a bunch of dust, from the broken Ten Commandment tablets. And the Nazi guy starts laughing, and because there's nothing in here. And then an angel, then it starts to rumble, and then an angel comes out, and it looks like a beautiful angel from heaven. And Belloc says it's beautiful, and then it changes into this ghastly looking, wrathful angel, and it wreaks havoc. It makes Belloc's head explode. It makes Thoth's character his face just melts, and the effects are, it's kind of like, it's a little schlocky. It's like horror movie kind of special effects, but yet there is something about it that's really like, ooh, wow, like very, very intense, very eye-catching, and all the other men, the men from this regiment that are there on this island, this group of Nazis, they all get pierced with fire and they all die. And while this is going on, Indy and Marion both have their eyes tightly closed, and we go back to him, and he says, "Don't look, Marion. Don't look at it." And she says, "I'm not looking. I'm not." So she knows to keep her eyes closed. That's a really interesting thing that we wouldn't necessarily expect from a character like her. She's impetuous. She's somebody who wants to know what the hell is going on around her. But in this case, she says, "Okay, Daddy, whatever you say. I'm keeping my eyes closed." She's being obedient to her man, which is kind of sexy, really, actually. And then so it all happens. We see it all, and everybody disappears. The ark is taken up into heaven, and then it gets sent back down, and then there's dead silence, and nothing is left except the ark. None of the men who were there before are there anymore. They're all gone. So they finally open their eyes. Now, here's the thing about this scene, and this is what I think is so cool about it, but it takes a minute for you to think this through before you realize it. It took me years. Believe me, I wasn't looking at the esoteric meanings of things when I was 10 years old watching Raiders of the Lost Ark in the movie theater. But here's what you realize if you think about it. So the ark has this power that if you see it at all, sort of like, and there are passages in the Old Testament where if somebody touches the ark improperly, they just implode or something. Like there are a few moments like that are suggestive that the ark, since it contains the original 10 commandments that were written by God, it's an object with a lot of oomph to it, a lot of power to it, and something that mortal man needs to keep a healthy distance from. But what has happened here? Well, in the movie, the only people in the world of the movie, the only people who saw what happened when they opened the ark die. They all die. Belloc, the Nazi guy, Thoth, all of the men in the regiment that were part of this, this unit that was confiscating the ark and taking it to this island, they all die. So they have their eyes open, they see what happens, and it leads to their demise. Indiana Jones and Marion, on the other hand, see nothing. They don't know what happened. Afterwards, when they open their eyes, all they know is they heard a lot of stuff going on. They heard some screaming. They heard some, all hell breaking loose. But they didn't know what was going on. And after it happens, they still don't know what really happened. All that they know is that the men who were there before are no longer there, and the ark is just sitting there by its solitary lonesome. So the guys who had their eyes open, they're all dead. The guy and the girl who had their eyes shut tight, all because of this premonition that Indy has, in spite of his professed, skepticism about quote unquote mumbo jumbo and all of that. He understands now the power that the ark has, and so he closes his eyes. Marion closes her eyes. So the ones with their eyes closed, they see nothing. And if somebody comes and asks them later what happened, they'll just say, "We don't know. We closed our eyes. We didn't see anything. We heard a bunch of stuff. We heard a bunch of chaos and mayhem, but we don't know what happened. We don't know what happened to all those Nazis. We don't know what happened to Belloc and Thoth and all those people." But who is in the privileged position of both getting to see what actually happened and living to tell the tale? The audience. The audience are the only ones who get to see what happens and yet live. And that's there's something about that that's really cool. It's really interesting. I mean, are we like if you wanted to take this in a scary sort of direction, are we now cursed because we saw it? Like, should we have had our eyes closed as well? But of course we didn't. We didn't want to. We wanted to see what would happen. We were curious. But anyway, so it raises that question. You can take it in that direction. Are we cursed now that we saw it? Or you can say to yourself, because, we saw it from the perspective of, of the film. We saw it in the perspective of a story that was being, taking place before our eyes, as opposed to the reality that it was for the characters in the movie. Therefore, for us, it wasn't deadly. But in any case, there is something about giving the audience this privileged position of getting to see something that is forbidden. and then in the end, we know more about what happened than the main characters do. We know more about what took place in that climactic scene. They asked Indy, if somebody asked Indy or Marion what happened, they wouldn't know anything except that what they heard. But if somebody asked us, we would know. We'd be able to tell them. There's something really interesting about that, about giving the audience that privileged position of being able to see. But is it a privilege or is it a curse? That's another thing maybe we can ponder. Anyway, those are my thoughts on that great scene that has many layers to it beyond just the schlock factor, which is, of course, the only thing that you see when you're a 10-year-old. It's just, wow, heads exploding, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, thanks for watching. Those are my thoughts on this scene.